Tonight, America's sovereignty is facing a monumental challenge. Over the weekend, you witnessed hundreds of so-called asylum seekers rushing the fencing along our southern border. They attempted to make an illegal crossing by force, hurling rocks, bottles, and other projectiles at our U.S. Border Patrol agents, and they were rebuffed with non-lethal tear gas. This is the crisis, yes, we have been warning you about, and it's about to get much worse. Now, many on the left are demonizing Border Patrol agents. Why? For protecting themselves and our country against what is blatant lawlessness. Some are accusing them of launching chemical weapons attacks, and others literally calling them terrorists, others comparing this to the Holocaust. We have all the madness. We'll call out the left's ignorance, pathetic political posturing on what is a very serious issue. We'll also show you what's really going on at the southern border. DHS Secretary Kristen Nielsen, she'll join us exclusively tonight. Plus, huge news tonight, Jerome Corsi and Paul Manafort refused to go along with the narrative lies of Robert Mueller. This is huge. We will explain why. And also tonight we will preview tomorrow's special election. This is important in Mississippi. The outcome there will determine the future of the U.S. Senate. Also, we'll take you live tonight. President Trump's rally is coming up in a few short minutes. First, it's time for our breaking news opening monologue. All right, as you're watching our monologue, think about these three simple questions. Do we, as a constitutional republic, do we have the right to sovereignty? Do you believe in borders? Do you believe we have a right to protect those borders, protect our sovereignty? Now, for weeks, we've been warning you about the looming crisis at our southern border. Now, at least 5,000 migrants have already arrived in the Mexican border city of Tijuana, with thousands more still on the way. Now, they're all demanding entry into the U.S., most under an asylum designation. But over the weekend, we saw several hundred of these so-called asylum seekers. Look at what they're doing. They're rushing the U.S. border. They're hurling rocks, bottles, other objects over the fencing. 3 Border Patrol officers were struck. We have broken windows, damaged vehicles of Border Patrol. In order to protect the border and themselves, U.S. Border Patrol agents fired non-lethal tear gas to disperse the mob of migrants trying to break across by force. Earlier today, Border Patrol Chief Carla Provost, she described this tense and this scary situation. Take a look.
Our agents were being assaulted. A large group rushed the area, and they were throwing rocks and bottles at my men and women, putting them in harm's way, as well as other members of the caravan. We needed to disperse the group, and with that assaultive nature, it was imperative that we disperse them from the area.
So it wasn't because they seemed to be running toward the United States. It was because they were hitting your Border Patrol with rocks and bottles?
Yes, sir, they were.
And meanwhile, over fake news CNN, San Diego's Chief Border Patrol agent Rodney Scott had this to say about those who rushed the border. Take a look.
Explain the decision to use the tear gas, because that is one question I think people have this morning.
So one of our primary missions is to make sure that we keep the border safe and secure. I kind of challenged that this was a peaceful protest or that the majority of these people were claiming asylum. We ended up making about 42 arrests. Only 8 of those were females, and there were only a few children involved. The vast majority of the people we're dealing with are adult males. Similar to what we saw the first wave of the caravan that came up about a week or so ago, the group immediately started throwing rocks and debris at our agents, taunting the agents. So once our agents were assaulted and the numbers started growing, we had 2 or 3 agents at a time initially facing hundreds of people at a time. They deployed tear gas to protect themselves and to protect the border. If they were truly asylum seekers, they would have just walked up with their hands up and surrendered, and that did not take place.
And just a few moments ago on the story, Chief Scott also had this to say about the migrants. Let's take a look.
We took this caravan very serious from day one. It's like no caravan we've ever seen before. You've heard reports that caravans happen all the time. That's true, but not caravans that have a propensity for this type of violence and not these massive numbers of people. We watched as they came up through Mexico, the violence that they were subjecting the Mexican police and military to. We prepared accordingly.
More violent than previous caravans. This is a serious situation. We don't want anybody to get hurt, and we do know a lot about those now trying to cross our border. By the way, even on conspiracy TV, MSNBC, a reporter actually stumbled upon the truth and told it. The majority of migrants at the border, they are not asylum seekers. They're mostly men looking for a better life. And I believe that probably about 99% of them. But we'll tell you more in a second. Take a look.
She says that she is hoping that they give her a chance to work. That's what we've heard from this family. This family hasn't really talked about asylum per se. They're saying that they don't even want to come to the United States. And definitely they're going to be asking for permission to work for 3 to 4 years. From what we've seen, the majority are actually men. And some of these men have not articulated that need for asylum. Instead, they have talked about, going to the United States for a better life and to find work.
Border security should not be a partisan issue. While most individuals who try to immigrate into the U.S., I understand it. They come from countries, no opportunities, poverty, good, decent people. They want what we often take for granted. But it's not always the case. Bad people constantly trying to gain access into our country. I've been down to the border more than anyone else that I know in the media about 13 times. I've witnessed illicit drug smuggling operations, drug warehouses, human trafficking, violent gang members arrested. I've sat through a briefing with then Governor Rick Perry, showed 642,000 crimes committed against Texans alone at the hands of illegal immigrants in just a 7-year period. This week, a suspected illegal immigrant charged with killing a Texas teacher during a hit-and-run incident. And according to the DHS, they've identified, along with Mexican officials, over 500 criminals that have infiltrated the migrant caravan. Bad people moving among those that want opportunity, those with criminal records, always actively trying to get into the U.S. In order to protect the safety and security of everyone living here, we've got to protect our borders. If we had a secure wall right now, nobody would be in harm's way. In lieu of a robust border wall, this country will always be vulnerable. You saw it this weekend. Look at the videos. Look at the pictures. As agents forced to defend themselves against hundreds of so-called asylum seekers who are attempting to break into the United States by force. By the way, those who seek asylum don't generally assault U.S. Border Patrol officers. And there are about 10,000 or up to 10,000 more people coming. But not according to the left. Liberals, Democrats, the media now waging a full-scale smear campaign against those defending our rule of law, our country. One Democratic senator actually tweeted, then deleted, a suggestion that the Border Patrol engaged in a chemical weapons attack. Why? By firing tear gas? Rihanna called the Border Patrol's actions, quote, terrorism. And then there's the Democratic, well, I guess rock star, Ocasio-Cortez tweeting, quote, this: asking to be considered a refugee and applying for status isn't a crime. It wasn't for Jewish families fleeing Germany. It wasn't for targeted families fleeing Rwanda. It wasn't for communities fleeing war-torn Syria. By the way, last time I checked, throwing rocks and bottles at law enforcement generally doesn't count as an application for refugee status. And any comparison, by the way, as Lindsey Graham pointed out in a tweet today, of the Holocaust to modern-day Central America does an extreme disservice to those who suffered and were murdered with unbelievable evil under Nazi Germany. The demonization of the Border Patrol, the Trump administration, continued all over TV. Predictable but sad. Take a look.
We have plenty in this country, plenty to share, plenty for everybody. And I think we need to remember that the reason we're great is because of this melting pot of immigrants.
There has got to be a pragmatic and compassionate answer here that does not involve tear gassing children. That is not who America is.
Using tear gas in this situation does not seem justified. We are investigating the facts on the ground. But the Border Patrol has a history of using unnecessary force.
Here we look at children being subjected to tear gas. That's the United States causing that. That's outrageous.
He's on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of decency.
We are not a military dictatorship. And the military does have a certain level of independence. He is the commander-in-chief. But the military also does have the authority to decide for themselves where there are moral lines that they will or won't cross.
So what should Border Patrol do when they're being hit with rocks and bottles and other things? What you just saw is just pure politics in motion. People literally lying to you. You saw the video. We'll show it again tonight. In 2013, interestingly, during the height of the Obama administration, guess what? Border Patrol agents did the exact same thing. Quote, they used pepper spray to fend off a group of 100 migrants who attempted to rush the same exact port of entry. So where was the mainstream left-wing media's outrage then? You know, where were Democratic tweets? Democrats tweeting dramatic tweets and accusing the president of all sorts of things. Of course, that was then. This is now. And while the security threats of unvetted immigration remain the same, the politics of the left have changed and changed dramatically. We've shown you the video over and over again. They now believe it's politically expedient to push for open borders, unfettered immigration, sanctuary cities, the end of ICE. And that's why Democratic presidential hopeful Kamala Harris actually said, well, there's a perception out there, isn't there, with ICE and the KKK? Now the left is trying to score political points over what is now an actual real crisis. Our Border Patrol agents deserve our protection. The rule of law needs to be adhered to. They don't seem to care about the 500 criminals that Mexico and the U.S. have identified as having infiltrated the caravan. They don't care about the extreme security risks associated with illegal immigration. They sure as hell don't care that each illegal immigrant, according to a study out 3 weeks ago, that successfully enters the country costs you, the American taxpayer, around $70,000 per year. And sadly, the left only cares about winning, no matter what the cost, no matter the damage, no matter the risk. They're not getting rocks hurled at them or bottles hurled at them. Clearly political. Sadly, this is just the beginning. Let me make a prediction. Over the next 2 years, the left's sole focus will be destroy Trump. For years, I have warned you, about the 5 forces out to destroy this president. We've had 2 years of nonstop attempts at delegitimizing a duly elected president. You have the Democrats, 1, the mainstream media, 2, the deep state, 3, weak Republicans, 4, never Trumpers. They want to be proven right. So mark my words. As we now head into January, the hate Trump House of Representatives, when they take power, those 5 forces will align and spew anti-Trump vitriol every second, every minute, every hour, every day. The good news for us, they will overreach. They will really extend what they think is a mandate that is not. What they won't do, sadly, is anything that will help the people of this country. You, the people, we, the people. And that is right now we have the most radical left-wing House of Representatives this country has ever seen. There are no more moderates. And, of course, the deep state side, well, we've been witnessing Mueller's destroy Trump partisan witch hunt play out for the past 558 days. And breaking tonight, this is huge news. Mueller is alleging that his top target, Paul Manafort, remember the target was about loan applications years ago, tax violations years ago. They're saying that he lied to investigators after agreeing to his plea deal. We also learned that Roger Stone's associate, Jerome Corsi, he's rejected a plea deal from Robert Mueller. The deal involved Corsi pleading guilty to 1 count of perjury. Greg Jarrett will join us in a moment. Here's what he noted. What we're seeing here is a classic Mueller-Weissman tactic, using threats and coercion to get people basically to test the lie. In other words, what that usually means is you either tell us what we want you to tell us, you lie, or you're going to get punished. Think about this. If they said what Mueller wanted, Corsi and Manafort, all they have to do is say what they're basically saying they want to hear. They would likely get a better deal. By not doing this, it means both those men know that they may be risking spending the rest of their lives in jail, and they have decided not to do it. This is a profound development, and I can't wait to hear the full backstory in both cases. Look at General Flynn, 30-plus years serving his country. The FBI didn't even think he lied. Comey didn't think he lied. Strzok didn't think he lied. But he was on the brink of bankruptcy, had to sell his home to pay his attorneys, so they turned the screws, probably threatened to go after his own son, and now he's awaiting sentencing. And by the way, they didn't even believe he lied. Then there's George Papadopoulos. He's now in jail for 2 weeks. He feels like he was set up big time. Just look at his tweets. He'll be locked up for the next 14 days. We'll talk to him afterwards. And does any of this have anything to do with Russia collusion? Nothing, because there is none. There is no Trump-Russia collusion. But we have been able to reveal on this program Clinton collusion. But if they cared about collusion, they certainly don't care about that, because if they did, they would look at surveillance abuse, unmasking abuse, leaking intelligence abuse, lying to FISA courts, and committing fraud upon the courts. They would look at the circular leaks of the phony dossier. They'd look at how the dossier was used to lie to the American people before the election and how Hillary paid for those Russian lies. They never told the FISA court this. No one seems to care in Mueller's office. Hillary's bought and paid for Russian lies. Now, this has literally become the biggest travesty of justice, a one-sided witch hunt that has no interest in truth or real Russia collusion. Hillary can pay for Russian lies. They don't care. They can propagandize and lie to the American people. They don't care. Even the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, even he doesn't stand by the dossier. So my warning is buckle up, because Democrats are going to rehash all of it when Democrats take the House. We'll have a lot more later in the program. But first, in just moments, we're going to take you live, as you can see, to Mississippi. The president is currently about to rally voters ahead of this important runoff tomorrow between Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith and liberal Democrat Mike Espy. This is a really important race that is definitely in play if you're in Mississippi, because a win for the Republican Hyde-Smith, well, that means an opportunity for the GOP to solidify its lead in the Senate. It's either going to be 53-47 or 52-48. And remember, votes in the Senate are so important, especially when it comes to things like, confirming constitutionalists, originalist justices for the president to make important appointments like replacing Jeff Sessions. And you have Democrat Mike Espy, a far-left liberal, that clearly supports Chuck Schumer and the rest of his radical Democrats already in Washington. He's been dodged by many ethical questions stemming from his recent lobbying work for an alleged war criminal from the West African country, the Ivory Coast. Espy was also forced out of the Clinton administration back in '94 while under investigation for allegedly receiving improper gifts. While he was acquitted of the 30 felony charges, the independent counsel found a pattern of, quote, improper behavior. Now, regardless of what the mainstream media wants you to believe, this race is very simple. Hyde-Smith is a vote for the Trump agenda. That means confirming originalist justices. A vote for Espy is a vote for the swamp and Chuck Schumer. It's that simple. So, Mississippi, this race matters, and I hope you vote tomorrow. Okay, now we're awaiting any minute now. The president, I believe, if I see right, it might be Mike Pence up there. I think it is. And he's not on stage yet. We have a lot of news also about the deep state that we're going to get to. Joining us with analysis, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, The Hill's executive vice president, investigative columnist John Solomon, Fox News investigative reporter, contributor Sarah Carter. Greg, let's start with Manafort and Corsi. Both of them know what they want, what the special counsel wants to hear.
Sure.
They're not giving it to them. That means they are risking, maybe both of them, they're older, maybe risking their whole life in jail as a result of just not saying what Mueller's team wants. Explain the process here.
Well, if it's true, they're to be commended for refusing to lie. All too often, overzealous prosecutors don't care about the truth. They care about charges and convictions. And so they use tactics of coercion and threats and bribery and extortion to get people to sign a sheet of paper that they know is a lie in order to implicate someone else based on false evidence. You know, if you and I did that, Sean, it would be suborning perjury. But somehow, over the years, we've allowed the government to do it, and it is unconscionable and it's wrong. And that appears to be what's happening here, but we just don't know quite yet.
Think about this, because they know what they want these guys to say. They know what they want them to say to them. They say it, they probably get out of jail, get a get out of jail free card, get out of jail early card. They both are saying they refuse to do it.
That's right.
To me, that means that takes an act of courage, because spending the rest of your life in jail is not a fun prospect.
It is
John Solomon,
it is an act of courage. And the question is Mueller capable of this? Well, as you pointed out, all we have to do is look at his treatment of Michael Flynn, who told the truth, and yet Mueller went after him, threatening his son, and broke Flynn financially in order to get him to cop a plea to something he honestly didn't do. FBI agents determined he told the truth, and yet Mueller charged him with lying.
You can comment on this, John, but you also have been following this migrant story. I'm looking at this video. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple quick things. First, one of the clear things tonight is that Bob Mueller's clearly winding down. He's ready to sentence Manafort. That's one of the headlines that doesn't get noticed. But if he's ready to move forward and he's going to sentence Manafort, he's wrapping this investigation up. This thing is winding down. We're going to find out these facts, sort through them, and I think people will know the truth soon. On the migrant crisis, we had one of the top border officials on our Hill TV show this morning, and he said three things that I thought were really important. One is those troops that the president sent to the border, they're not window dressing or eye candy. They've been very helpful for establishing security. Two, it would be more helpful if they had a wall. And three, if you thought that was a peaceful protest Sunday on the border, you weren't there. And I think those are three things that aren't cutting through the message of the media, but they're important to listen. These are the guys on the ground telling us what they really need. It's time we started to listen to them.
Let me go to you, Sarah. You've been following both stories. We'll give you an opportunity to respond to both. Let's start with the border.
With the border. Let's start with the border first. You know, as we're all focused on Tijuana and we see what's been happening there, we know that the majority of people that are amassing at the border are mostly men. I decided let's call the people down in the Rio Grande sector in Texas. Let's talk to the people in Yuma. And what I'm hearing is just as astounding. Over the last 2 months, Sean, 5,000 a week have been going into the Rio Grande Valley sector, the McAllen sector. Last week, they have 242 beds for holding in the McAllen sector. Guess how many people were in that holding center? 2,700. And I got this from the union representative, Chris Cabrera, just tonight before I came on the air. So there is a huge problem, not just in Tijuana, but while we're all focused there, let's not forget about the rest of the roughly nearly 2,000-mile border. And if we're going to talk about Mueller and the investigation, this is what the special counsel does, right? So they're pressurizing, they're putting pressure on everybody, that Paul Manafort, everyone else, Jerome Corsi, they are wrapping up. But this is sending a message to the judges because they want the maximum effect, the maximum sentencing, because this is all they have.
You're going to put Paul Manafort in jail for the rest of his life because he won't give you the lie that you're asking for. That's basically it.
Yeah, and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, we're seeing what's happening with that. And I mean, look, he's coming up for sentencing, and we know what John said was a fact. I mean, there was no collusion. That's exactly what the FBI had been saying from the beginning.
We got a break. Thank you all. Great work. We appreciate it. We're going to follow this in more detail tomorrow. We expect when we come back, we will take you live. The president, there's an important race in Mississippi, very big race tomorrow. It's either 53-47, 52-48. If you're in Mississippi, it's important. Also tonight, an exclusive interview with Homeland Security Secretary Kristen Nielsen on the migrant crisis, caravan, and more. We'll go to Mississippi when we get back. All right, perfect timing. The president is in Biloxi, Mississippi right now. He just took to the stage campaigning for Senate Senate candidate Cindy Hyde-Smith ahead of tomorrow's special election against Mike Espy. This is an important Senate election. It's either going to be 53-47, 52-48. This is a big race. Take a look.
It's about time. It's about time. Under Republican leadership, America is winning again. America is respected again. We are respected like at no time before. And I can tell you, I'm meeting constantly with foreign leaders, and they walk in and they say, Mr. President, it's incredible what's happened with your country in such a short period of time. America is respected again. We've unleashed the greatest economic comeback in American history. More Americans are working today than ever before. Think of that. Today, right now, more Americans are working in our country than at any time before. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing. We've created 4.5 million new jobs. And we've lifted 4.3 million Americans off of food stamps. The unemployment rate just hit the lowest level in more than 50 years. And here in Mississippi, the unemployment rate has hit its lowest level of all time. Congratulations, Mississippi. African American unemployment has reached the lowest rate ever recorded. African American youth unemployment has reached the lowest rate ever recorded. And African American poverty is at an all-time low. Remember what I used to say, what the hell do you have to lose, right? Well, we produced, and we're going to continue to produce. Republicans passed a massive tax cut for Mississippi families. We eliminated a record number of job-killing regulations, and America is now the #1 producer of energy on the planet Earth. Not even close. And that took place pretty quickly, didn't it? We are taking care of our veterans, and our military will soon be more powerful than it has ever been before. And because of that incredible power, hopefully we will never have to use it, right? But to protect these amazing achievements, Mississippi must defend our Senate Republican majority. You know, we had a fantastic evening and day very recently, the midterms. We got very little credit from the fake news media. Very little credit. They talked about the House, but the people I campaigned for in the House, which was very few, I can't, look, I'm one person. But the people I campaigned, like in Kentucky, Andy Barr, and so many others, they won. But the people I campaigned for, generally governor of Georgia, governor of Florida, governor of Ohio, Tennessee, senator, great new senator from Tennessee, Indiana, North Dakota, Missouri, Florida, and many, many others. We got very little credit, but we actually, if we win tomorrow, we go 53-47, and nobody can believe it. (53-47), they're not happy. The fake news is not happy about those numbers. But that really does, that gives us very much of a breather. And for those of you that study politics, when the sitting president picks up a seat, let alone like we've done, that's considered a big deal for whatever reason, But I used to say, I think that's going to happen. And I have to tell you, we had 3 seats, even 4 seats, that were so close. We almost won in areas that a lot of people say don't bother contesting. We almost won in 4 states that a lot of people said, don't bother, you can't win. I said, let's give it a shot. And I'll tell you, little tricky business going on, but let's give them the benefit of a doubt, right? If you let Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and Chuck Schumer win the Mississippi Senate seat, they will try to erase all of our gains, reverse all of our progress, and impose, and you know this, they want to impose their extreme job-killing agenda, and I just said, you just set your all-time record in Mississippi for jobs. It can disappear quickly with the wrong leadership. We don't want that to happen. So if you want more jobs, less crime, strong borders, how are we doing on the borders? Then you only have one choice tomorrow. You must vote Republican. We are honored tonight to be joined by several really terrific Mississippi Republican leaders. And we'll start with a friend of mine. He has been so incredible. 7 months ago, he took me around to see things, and then he showed me something that he's maybe the most proud of all of, the African American Museum. Phil Bryant put his guts and his life and his blood into it. Number one, it's doing fantastically, but number two, I loved it, and he did a fantastic job. He is a great governor, Governor Phil Bryant. Where is Phil? Come here, Phil. Come here, Phil. Come on up here, Phil. We have to get him up here, right? Great governor.
Thank you so much. Oh, we having a great night tonight? Are we proud to have Donald J. Trump in the House? You are here. He is here to help elect Cindy Hyde-Smith and make America great again. God bless you, Mississippi.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you, Phil. Great job. Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves. Lieutenant Governor, where is our Lieutenant Governor? Where is he? Where is he? Thank you, Tate. A man who's been spectacular. The job he's done. Everyone's talking about it. U.S. Attorney Mike Hurst. Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. A very good friend of mine. He's always there. He's always available, and he is very smart. He loves the people of Mississippi. He loves the people of our country. Senator Roger Wicker. Roger. Thank you, Roger. Great job. And a man that did so well recently. It'll go down for a long time. You're going to be seeing those words. They were beautiful words, and they were needed very desperately at that time. Brett Kavanaugh was being treated very unfairly, very, very unfairly. And Lindsey Graham got up and he hit a chord that you hit very rarely in the world of politics or anything else. He said things that were said not only so well, the meaning of what he said really changed the course of that event, and now we have a great, great Supreme Court Justice, Brett Kavanaugh. Lindsey Graham. Lindsey, thank you, Lindsey. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsey. He really did. That was very special. We're all here tonight to support an amazing leader and a tremendous champion for this great state, a woman who went to Washington.
All right, as the president goes through his introductions, and I assume that he will next be introducing Cindy Hyde-Smith, we go really quickly. We'll get back to that in a second as he gets back to substance. The author of a brand new book, by the way, Trump's Enemies, How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency, former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, former Trump deputy campaign manager Dave Bossie. Guys, this election, by the way, I want to get into the substance of your book. It's really well written, a little scary. Let's talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, guys. Dave Bossie, they're talking to my ear. Dave Bossie, this race tomorrow is very important as the president goes here. 53-47, 52-48. In the Senate, a big difference.
You know, this race has to go our way. We have to have the senator get reelected. Senator Hyde-Smith must get reelected tomorrow. It's important for the president's agenda, for our America First agenda. This president is working again as hard as he can for every candidate to get every single voter to the polls tomorrow.
You know, you look at the importance. It's so funny because in his first midterm, Clinton lost 8 Senate seats, 52 House seats. Right. Obama lost 6 Senate seats, 63 House seats, 69, 60. And this president nets, looks like, you know, what we netted Florida, big change in Missouri, North Dakota, Indiana, huge wins for the president, and the places he campaigned the hardest.
That's exactly what we just heard the president talk about. This president is the greatest campaigner we've ever seen, and it is exciting to watch him during the midterm elections in September and October, really turning up the volume. But he's here again in Mississippi for a must-win tomorrow, and I think he's going to get her across the finish line. And that way, we have an easier time in the Senate getting our nominees through, getting judges through, and passing important legislation to move America forward.
You know, Corey Lewandowski, I know you and Dave co-authored this book. You're second, by the way, Trump's Enemies, about the deep state. And I talk about the 5 forces. Explain to people exactly what's going on and why this is so dangerous, something we have been delving into deeply, doing a deep dive here on this program almost every night.
Well, Sean, the permanent bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. is one that transitions from one administration to the other. And what they have done, particularly to Donald Trump, who's a change agent when he came to Washington, was to stop his agenda by obfuscation, by subverting the will of what he wants to get done, by putting things out to pasture, by using the bureaucracy. And what this president wants to do now is he's very clear. He's going to get his agenda done, and that includes draining the swamp and bringing people to Washington, D.C., who understand that putting America first is not just a slogan, but is a way of life.
And we saw that in the last election, interestingly, although the media won't give him credit. All right, so the book is called Trump's Enemies, about the deep state, Amazon.com, bookstores everywhere. Guys, I can't help it that the president's taking your time, so you have to forgive me. But congratulations, both of you, on the book. Thanks for being with us tonight. We'll have you back soon.
Thanks very much.
All right, what we're going to do is, while we are now watching Cindy Hyde-Smith speak, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll go right back to the president, his rally in Mississippi, in the lead-up, obviously, to tomorrow's important special election there. A lot at stake in Mississippi, that open Senate seat. We'll hear the president talk more about the borders, Mueller's investigation, I'm sure will come up. We'll carry it live right here. All right, thanks for sticking with us as we go back live. Biloxi, Mississippi, the president holding a rally for Cindy Hyde-Smith ahead of tomorrow's special election. This is a big deal. It's either going to be 53-47 or 52-48. This election is important for the U.S. Senate, confirmations, of course, Supreme Court justices. Back to the president.
Climbing those walls would be a very painful experience right now. Republicans are committed to halting this incursion and defending the sovereign borders of the United States. We are sending a simple message to the lawless caravans and to the illegal trespassers marching toward our border. It's very simple. Turn back now, go back home. We will not let you in. We are not going to let you in. Turn back now. Illegal immigration is also deeply unfair to American workers, including African American workers. People don't realize what happens. My administration will always put the citizens of our country first. The policies of open borders are a threat to every community. Since I took office, ICE agents have arrested over 235,000 aliens with criminal records. Can you believe that? 235,000. That's a lot. And by the way, they want to get rid of ICE. Can you believe it? These are tough, strong, brilliant people that also happen to love our country. And I don't want that job. And you don't want it. And you don't want it. And you don't want it. And you might take it right there. He might. This guy, I think you could qualify. Including those charged or convicted of more than 100,000 assaults and nearly 4,000 murders. And we're getting MS-13 out. We're taking them out by the thousands and shipping them the hell out of here. We're getting them out. In the state of Texas alone, according to the Texas Department of Public Safety, between 2011 and 2018, more than 663,000 crimes were committed by illegal immigrants. You know, you hear these stories about, oh, they don't commit crimes. We commit crimes. They don't commit crimes. Always it's us. No, no, it doesn't work that way. It's fake news. It's fake news. Just recently, an illegal alien released by a sanctuary city in New Jersey was charged with a triple homicide in another state. In just one operation alone, our ICE officers arrested 355 MS-13 gang members on Long Island and in the New York City area. Of those, nearly half were present in the country because they took advantage of the Democrat-backed loophole granting entry to unaccompanied alien minors. Welcome to the United States. Yet Democrats want to abolish ICE. They want to turn America into one giant sanctuary city for violent criminals and MS-13 and other gang killers. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. Republicans believe America should be a sanctuary for law-abiding citizens, not criminal aliens. Every single day, we are finding the illegal alien gang members and predators, and we are either throwing them the hell out of here, putting them in jail, or just plain getting them out of our country as nicely as possible. Tomorrow's election is about safety, and tomorrow's election is about prosperity. For decades, Washington politicians allowed foreign countries to plunder our jobs, shutter our factories, and decimate our industries. I've been talking about it for 20 years. When I was in the private sector, I can't believe I'm not in the private sector. Now they call me a politician. I'm a politician. I can't stand it. They said he's a political person. But I've only had one race, and look at the result. Here we are. And we're only going to have one more race, and hopefully that result will be even better because we produced. Trillions of dollars were ripped from our nation and redistributed all across the globe. We've distributed money and we've distributed our wealth. It's been ripped away from us. It's been taken and given to China and given to Japan and given to South Korea and given to South America and given to everybody all over the world. It's been given to everybody but us. We racked up $4.5 trillion in trade deficits with China since they entered the WTO, that's the World Trade Organization, which other than NAFTA is probably the worst trade deal any country has ever entered. And we entered it, and that's what built China into the power. But now we're the big power. We're far more powerful, and that's the way we're going to keep it. We had an annual trade deficit. Thank you. We had an annual trade deficit. Listen to this. Who made these deals? Who made them? Almost $800 billion a year we lose on trade. We're stopping that. We're turning that. We just made a great new deal with Canada, with Mexico. But of course, they have to treat us fairly. Otherwise, we'll just tax their product when it comes in. You know that. You know that. You know that. You know what I'm talking about. Entire nations were rebuilt at the expense of America's middle class and, frankly, at the expense of America's business. This massive transfer of wealth represented the greatest jobs theft in the history of the world. Greatest jobs theft. And you know what? I don't blame China, and I don't blame these other countries. I blame the leaders of the United States that allowed this to happen. Why shouldn't the other countries try and make these great deals that they've made? I told President Xi, I mean, it's over. I said it's over. But I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. I wish we had people that did the same thing in reverse, but we didn't have those people, unfortunately. Here in Mississippi, you lost 4 out of 10 manufacturing jobs in the last 20 years alone. But those days are over. That's why you're doing so well now. And you do have a great, great governor, I have to say that. America's economic surrender ended the day that I took the oath of office. It ended. And you know what? It really was. Through stupidity, it was an economic surrender. Economic surrender. Why we allowed it to happen, how we allowed it to happen, why these politicians didn't do their job, it's a disgrace. So we're not going to be taken advantage of anymore. Under my administration, we've created 600,000 brand new manufacturing jobs that people said could never come back to our country. All right? Remember the previous administration? Remember the previous administration said, oh, manufacturing jobs, that'll never happen. I kept saying, what's he talking about? Manufacturing. We got to make things, right? They said manufacturing jobs would never come back. You'd need a magic wand. Well, we found the magic wand. And they're great jobs. They're high-paying jobs. They're brilliant jobs. They're important
there
jobs.
Tomorrow for the U.S. Senate. This will be the final seat decided there. We got to take one more break. I apologize. It's not my rules. Anyway, we'll have more Hannity right after this. All right, so the president continues his speech in Biloxi, Mississippi tonight. This runoff election is really important because it's the difference between Republicans having 53-47 in the Senate, majority, or 52-48. Big difference when it comes to judges. Big difference when it comes to confirmations. So we'll get to, we'll watch that very closely. We'll have results tomorrow. Also tomorrow, an exclusive interview with the Homeland Security Secretary. Kirstjen Nielsen will join us on exactly what's happened at the border. We'll cover that. We'll tell you the truth, other networks or not. Lindsey Graham will join us. That's all the time we have left. But we'll see you tomorrow at 9. Let not your heart be troubled. There she is.